Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Wounded Healer, where we make the human experience more enjoyable. I'm your host, Keith, and today we're going to talk about vulnerability. We're going to talk about being vulnerable. The Webster Dictionary defines it as able to be easily physically or mentally hurt, influenced, or attacked. Susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm of a person in need of special care, support, or protection because of age, disability, or risk of abuse or neglect. Not the best definition. Not something you really want to be associated with if you read that. However, showing vulnerability, being vulnerable, is a part of our everyday life. It is a part of our genetic makeup, and it is something that is necessary to have a successful, healthy relationship. So how did all this come about? Why this topic today? Well, I was talking to some folks about podcast ideas, and to my surprise, two males kind of stood out and stepped forward and said, we want to hear it's okay to not be okay. And I kind of looked and said, well, what do you mean by that? And they said, well, I don't want to pretend I'm not feeling sad or hurt. And I kind of said, well, it sounds like, vulnerability. It sounds like you want to be vulnerable. You want to share those things and not be judged. Is that kind of what you're talking about? And they said, yep. So I thought to myself, oh shit, here we go. They just picked a topic I absolutely suck at. I was a poster child for putting barriers up and walls up and not showing vulnerability, pretending that I was not vulnerable. So I was said, it's not going to be that hard because I have a lot of good examples, bad examples, but good examples to share, to learn from. And, I took the rest of the day and just kind of thought about my life like I typically do, where a lot of my examples and experiences come from. And, there was a lot of examples of everything in my power to not show vulnerability. I was letting my ego get in the way. I was letting my fears drive me. I was shutting down just before I allowed myself to let the other person in. I was running like Forrest Gump from the weaknesses I had. I would even hurt those near to me so I didn't have to be weak or show weakness, or it's not healthy. It is not a good way to go about life. It is definitely not a good way to keep and maintain healthy and successful relationships. Like I said, I could have been the poster child of what not to do. Now, self-reflection can be helpful, but if you spend too much time in that dungeon of feelings and emotions and mistakes and all of that, things can go sideways. So I will always encourage you to self-reflect, that introspectiveness, get after it, but don't stay too long. Stay long enough just to figure out what you need to do and move on. And, it's even worse if you're just not in a good place. You definitely don't want to stay there any longer than you need to. So, I just started to think about what it means to me now to be vulnerable or to show vulnerability and how I apply it to my life now. And I thought that would be a pretty good show. That would be a lot of good things to share to help people learn and grow, I guess you would say. And I would say recently, I was in a spot where I had to kind of open up and let things down and let someone know that they hurt me, but I was willing to listen and try to understand why, to figure it out. And it took a lot for me to say that, but I think it was the right thing to do, and I am happy that I did it, and I was happy with the outcome. I would say 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I would have never done that. I would have just kept on going. And, I would have said, well, I can't be weak. I can't show feelings. I can't talk about my emotions. And then, obviously, I would have just been in that loop of nonsense and not having good outcomes and so on. And don't get me wrong, you just don't wake up one day and go, okay, yep, well, there it is. Here's all my weaknesses. I'm letting down the armor, I'm letting down the shield. I'm opening up. It doesn't work that way. It takes a lot of growth, a lot of introspection. And, for those out there who may not know that what introspection is, it's that examination or these observations of one's own mental and emotional processes. So that is all you. You got to dig deep. You got to look at yourself. And I like that. It's helped me a ton, and I've talked about it a few other times already. It is beneficial if you can do that in a healthy way and not get sideways. And it's an ongoing process. You got to continue to, look within and apply, and you got to continue to open up and share little bit by little bit. You will get better and better at it. Now, we can try to understand the whole idea or concept of being vulnerable. So, you're not born afraid of really anything. You're not, well, there's a couple of things genetically that we are born afraid of, but in general, you're not born afraid of being vulnerable. I mean, if you look at it, a newborn baby, they cry every time they need something, and they expect to get it. And, no matter how exhausted their caregiver feels, children really depend on exhibiting vulnerability to survive. It's what happens over time when we develop the fear through various life experiences. It's the more that we are taught that vulnerability is dangerous or wrong, the less likely that we are to embrace that is when you really start to kind of shield yourself. It's when those particular needs are not met. You start to develop these traumas, these fears of rejection. Or it could even be like cultural or like family expectations. Different cultures across the world and different family religions or anything can play a part in this. So again, it's not just a general thing that you all just wake up with and we either have it or we don't. It comes in many different forms and fashions. But at the end of the day, it's the individual not willing to open up to let someone else in. And that's when it hurts you the most. At the end of the day, it wasn't the folks that I was shielding or I was protecting myself from that was hurt. It was me who I was hurting. I was missing out on friendships, relationships, opportunities. It can go on and on and on. I was the one that was missing out because I was scared to show vulnerability. I was scared. And it's not a place you want to be. And if you look back through evolution and how we've evolved, being vulnerable and exposing yourself to different things can change the course of evolution as it did with our ancestors. They were faced with many changes and challenges in biology and environment. And that caused a genetic adaptation or they died. So this isn't something that is new to us modern humans now. It's been a part of us as we've evolved to where we are now. So, you can see through those few examples of how important it is to the existence of the individual to have a good, healthy, happy, successful experience. Now, me being male, I'm going to speak more so for the males, because there's this. I don't even really know what's going on with the whole masculinity thing right now. It's not something that I follow. It's not something that I feel like I need to follow. It's not something that I have a whole lot of opinions on. I think, just you just wake up, go out there, be the best you. And, are there things that are different between genders and things like that? Yes, of course. But at the end of the day, just be the best version of you. And that's all that should matter, really. I'm not judging anybody just because I enjoy doing stuff that people consider man stuff. It's just shit that I've done since I was a little boy that I enjoy doing. I find peace and happiness and joy in doing that type of stuff. But, it's not something that I push on others, and it's not something that I judge others for not doing or not being able to do. I've had some really awesome people in my life that have shown me these skills and, trades, and just, I've had, these experiences that have helped mold me into who I am. And at the end of the day, I'll pass that stuff along. I have 2 sons, and, if that's something they're interested in, then so be it. If not, I'm going to let them be who they are. And, that could be me being vulnerable there. I'm okay with whatever they want to be. And I'll always have the skill set that I have to help them if they need it, or to help others if they need it. And that's how I see the skills and knowledge and experiences that I have. It's just, shit that I can use to help other people if they ask or if they need it. So again, the whole, masculinity thing that's going on out there right now, it's whatever to me. And, whatever it is, whatever you want to be it. Just be the best version of you. But either way, no matter what you are going to be or not going to be, at some point you're going to have to show something. You're going to have to let someone else in, and you're going to have to be vulnerable. It's not going to be easy. But speaking for males, again, since I am a male, just having that ability to open up and to be honest about feelings. And I think that's the takeaway here. And I think if you go back to the beginning when I was talking about podcast ideas, and those 2 gentlemen stepped up and said, we just want to say it's okay to not feel okay. We just want to express that, share that, and not be judged. I think that kind of, that's what they were talking about. They want to feel like they can open up and be honest about their feelings and experiences, and even when they're difficult, and not be judged. Have someone say, have someone listen, and kind of just either give them that shoulder to cry on, give them a hug, tell them it's going to be okay, talk them through it, or just say, you know what, you're going to have a shit day today. I'll step up and try to make it as smooth as possible, because hell, I've been there too, or I know my day's coming. All of our days are coming, and you just have to be ready for it. So, it's It's that willingness to show up and be seen even when afraid. And you could also say that courage, courage doesn't mean that we're never afraid. It's courage means that we face our fears head on. So to show vulnerability, to be vulnerable, also shows courage. So it says a lot about your character. So it is okay to not be okay. Hell, I've had many days where I'm not okay. Have I had many days where I haven't really had someone to tell that to? Yeah. I don't have days like that anymore. And I think in the past, a lot of it was because, one, I wouldn't tell anybody. Two, I didn't have a trust within someone that I felt I could do that and it not backfire on me. And I don't feel that way now. And I'm okay with that. It feels good. And, why is it important? Well, like I said earlier, if you want to be successful and happy and to have a closer, deeper connection, it is essential to any relationship, to be vulnerable. It just fosters closeness and intimacy and trust. And without it, the relationships just kind of tend to be superficial, and people will start to feel disconnected. And trust me, I've lived it. So I know firsthand example. I understand what it feels like to be in a superficial relationship. I also know what it feels like to be disconnected. And it also, will build resentment of each other. And don't get me wrong, you just don't start out in a relationship or a friendship or any type of, and anything with anybody. You don't start out just being open. And that's a whole nother show for the folks that just kind of open up and give you everything first time you meet them. And that's a whole lot of other shit going on that you should just leave. If you meet somebody for the first time and they just start blowing you up with everything and anything they've ever done their entire history, they give you every bit of information, you got to walk away. Don't go back. It's okay to meet somebody and not know everything about them. Okay. So if anyone out there is got a date coming up, or you want to have a date, or you're planning on a date, it is okay to walk away not knowing absolutely everything about that other person. So just trust me on that one. Now, the opposite of being vulnerable, is invulnerable, guarded, immune, resistant, unstoppable, bulletproof, impassable, impenetrable. Those things sound pretty badass, but it sounds like, a Marvel character. But when you're talking about being in a relationship with someone, that is not okay. That is not what you want to be labeled as. That is not what you want to be hearing. You're doomed. You're going to fail miserably. Again, been there, right? So, and you really do need to find someone that you can be safe with, that you feel safe with. And, I think right now in my life, I'm starting to understand what that means, especially coming from someone else, not just me personally, but someone close to me. I've never had, I feel safe in my own body, my own skin. I feel safe in my surroundings. I don't need anyone to protect me. I can handle myself. I'm aware of what's going on. I'm in tune with the things around me, with people, with just their skill levels, what people are capable of. I spend a lot of time on that. I spend a lot of time watching people you know, and, I like to think, and I've been in some tough situations, and, I've handled myself well. So I don't have I guess it just never crosses my mind that I'm not safe, or I need to feel safe, or what have you. So, that was something that was new to me, was to try to understand that better for somebody else. And that shit takes work too, because, you can't understand why someone would need to feel safe. But at the end of the day, it's not that hard. It just took me to stop being a moron and say, okay, it's no different than your children. They need you. They need you to protect them. They need you to feel safe. And then if you just apply that at all levels, you are that person. And you just have to learn, or to understand what that looks like at all levels. So yeah, now I understand what it means to make someone else feel safe. And that's a lot of work. That's a job. But that's your job. If that's what you're doing, and that's where you want to be, and that's what you need to do, then you gotta you gotta put those work boots on and get after it. But it's also I think, being vulnerable with someone, you do have to practice it. You do have to feel safe. You do need to see it in others. I think we do better when we see it in others, and then we repeat it. That's kind of how our brains work in some aspects. That we have mirror neurons in there, and we like to see things and then repeat those things. It makes us better when we do that. And for those two fellas that are talking about not being okay, guess what? It is okay to say you're just not at your best today. And remember that actually shows courage. That shows strength to say that, to come out and say that. And you should not be ashamed of that. You should not be afraid of that. You should not feel any other way other than powerful and strong, because you did something that most people can't do. And kudos to you. And at the end of the day, without courage, you're not going to accomplish anything that has real value, that is good in your life. You got to put yourself out there. You got to get after it. You got to try, put yourself outside your comfort zone. And you can't really worry about what others think, say, or feel. You got to get after it. I hope that I was able to answer the questions you had about being vulnerable. I hope that I was able to express it in a way that made sense, I guess, or that was meaningful, or that felt real, and satisfied what maybe expectations you had for vulnerability. And again, it's just something that, we're all going to have to get better at, and we're going to have to practice, me included. But life is better when you do open up. Life is better when you do tell somebody, or when you tell somebody how you're feeling. Life is better when that other person listens and tells you, okay, it's going to be all right. I get it. I got you. And if you are someone who is a protector, if you are someone who does not need to be protected, remember that it's your job to protect those who are vulnerable, and use those skills and experiences and knowledge that you have to make them feel safe. That's it for this one. Hopefully that satisfied vulnerability, and we'll see you on the next one.